All right, I think that if anybody else joins in, they will have still a time to catch up with what we are presenting. Hi, I'm very glad to meet you. I'm Eva Grabowska and I am a customer care at Soldevelo. And here with me is Paweł Gesek, who is product owner of Worklogs app, about which we'll be talking today. And
hello, everyone.
And just before we start, let me explain a couple of technical cases for you. First of all, every attendee has a muted voice, so don't worry, don't look for the button to mute yourself. It is already covered, so nobody will hear you. You can speak out loud and there are no worries. You can, of course, talk with us through chat or Q&A section. Please feel free to write at any point of the presentation. We'll just get back to your questions at the end of each segment, at the end of what we are presenting. But feel free to write your questions all the time. And what we will be talking about today is Worklogs time tracking and reports app and its future. We want to use this opportunity of Apptoberfest to talk with you, our users, about what we will be having in Worklogs in the future and what we should develop in the future. What are your needs? What perhaps you would want? Because maybe our ideas are not exactly what you would like to have in our priority. And we will be asking you a few questions through polls here that you already can see on the screen. Please feel free to enjoy them and click them. It will give us a lot more insight into how do you feel about the features that we are presenting. And after we present our features, our ideas, we would like to have a discussion with you where you will be able to tell us more what you would like to see in Worklogs, or perhaps add some ideas about the features that we are presenting here. So moving on, I would like to ask Paweł now to maybe tell us more about Soldevelo.
Okay, so again, hello everyone. As Eva mentioned, my name is Paweł Gesek and I'm the product owner for our Worklogs time tracking reports app for Jira. And yeah, I will be happy to talk with you about the app and some of our most requested features. So Soldevelo, here at Soldevelo, we are a dynamic software development company. We have started, that was founded in 2009 here in Gdynia in Poland, and started as a software development company, a software house building software for our clients, software house. And as such, we were always focused on continuous improvement, oriented on results and the satisfaction of our customers, as well as we were always ready to stand in front of any challenges thrown our way. And as time went on, we also, as many software development companies do, started developing our own solutions for internal use initially. And one of such apps that started to take form was Worklogs, a tool for better reporting on time logging in Jira, which was solving our needs really. Since, as you may know, this is something that Jira does not easily or in a friendly way give you, is reports on the time that's being logged. So we have developed Worklogs initially as a standalone app, independent of Jira, and with time it evolved into a Jira app, since we thought that perhaps other other community members or other companies might have the same issues that we had when it comes to time reporting. And so the Worklogs time tracking and reports app was born in 2018. Now fast forward a few years later in 2021, we have over 2,000 customers, 2,000 instances. And so Devero also has multiple other apps that we have developed as part of this effort on our end. So as I mentioned, we have well, 6 apps in total. The 3 main ones is Worklogs, which is our most popular app. As I mentioned, around 2,000 installations. The other 2 worth mentioning are multiple checklists for Jira, which is our second most popular app, well, paid app, which is a checklisting app, allows you to create checklists in Jira issues. And the biggest selling point is that you can have multiple checklists in a single Jira issue using our app. The other interesting app that we are developing and hosting at the marketplace is Quality, which comes in a freemium model. So you have both the free quality test management app, which allows you to create test cases, test cycles, and execute these tests and manage these tests in Jira. As I mentioned, it's free, no strings attached, no limits. You can use it for free, so I encourage everyone to try it out. And Quality Plus is a paid version of the Quality app, which adds reporting, advanced reporting, dashboards, import-export, and other features to the core Quality app.
Great, and sorry, I moved the presentation unintentionally. I wanted to ask you because, as I can see, not everybody in our post has took a part, so we don't actually know if everybody knows Worklogs. Could you please, Pavel, make a quick demo to just show up our app that we will be talking about?
Sure. Let me just show the app. Just a minute. Okay. Okay, so hope everyone can see the Worklogs app. Okay, so this is Worklogs, our app for reporting on time logged in Jira. This app is available for all Jira versions, which is the cloud, server, and data center. This is the cloud version. However, the server version and data center versions are very similar. They offer the same functionality. So the app allows us to see reports on time being logged in Jira. As you can see, I can, for example, filter which time I want to show by different projects, filters, users and groups. Maybe let's show my time. I also select the date range for which I want to show these worklogs. So let's do the whole year. I can either select it manually using this handy here, these handy shortcuts. So let's do it. Let's view the report. That's my time here. Yeah, and as you can see, this is the time that I logged in different Jira issues across this year. One thing to note about Worklogs is that we are using Jira tracking fully. We do not have any custom time logging providers or anything like that. So we are using fully compatible with Jira time tracking and using it. So if you are using Jira time logging, you can install our app and see reports on the time that you have logged previously out of the box. Also, if you ever want to change our app, hopefully not, but if that happens, you are not dependent on us in any way since we do not store the time tracking data, or this data is stored in Jira issues using native Jira features such as the time tracking. And as you can see here, I have a report of my time. I can select categorizations, groupings. So here, for example, I categorize by project and I group the issues by the issue type. So as you can see, for example, in the project app Worklogs, I have log time 2.5 hours in bug tickets and an hour in a story type issue. I can change this. For example, I can remove the grouping to have a bit more simpler view. Let's just see this view by projects. As you can see, we can see how much time I logged in different projects here. I can we can click here and see a drill down which shows exactly into which tickets I logged time. This way I can manage my time better. I can see where I log time and keep track of where I logged it and make sure it fits the standards or the requirements that are put against me. I can also not limit this to myself. I can view other users. Or so one option is to see where the team was logging time, not just me. Another option is I can also do issues here as a grouping, so I can see time being grouped, categorized by project, then grouped by issues in this example. So I see how much went into different projects, and I see the task breakdown immediately here in the table. Other than the grouping categorization options, Worklogs also allows different modifications of the view. You can change the period grouping, for example. Here I'm looking at this grouped by month, but I can also do it by day, day by day, depends on what type of report you are interested in. In this case, I can see it group by day. I think my PC is heating up. Okay. Sorry for the lag, everyone. In any case, I can, so going back to Worklogs, I can also log the time here using our modals that this is the same as if you would go straight into the Jira issue and log the time there. I can select in which issue I want to log the time. I can input the time I want to log and select other, also add comments. I can do it here from the model, but I can also do it here in the header by selecting the day in which I want to log the time.
So it might come in handy if you forget to log your times like I do. More than I would like to admit. And when I just check if I have 8 hours logged each day and if I didn't miss anything, it's easier to log time right from here rather than go to issues and open another tab and click log time there. So it is a little feature that can help you do it more efficiently and smoothly.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Also, one option, one feature that's worth mentioning in Worklogs is that all of this can be exported into an XLS file, an Excel file. Which is often used by our users, customers, for other reporting purposes. I assume you don't see my XOS here. I probably have to switch the screen. So let me just quickly jump over here. Okay. So now you should see the XLSX export. There are, in our XLS export, we show two data sheets. The first one shows exactly the view you get in the Worklogs table, only in Excel format. The other shows all the Worklogs uh, details. So these are the actual Worklogs that are being made underneath in the Jira issues. This is often very handy as you can get all the Worklogs in this export and then process them in any way that you would with Excel. So I think that would conclude our short demo of Worklogs. I think we would want to move probably to the new upcoming features or the features most requested by our customers.
All right. Would you share the presentation? Would you like me?
Yeah, I guess it is.
All right. Just a moment.
Here we go. So, um, okay. Okay, so this is where we left off in the presentation. So let's continue. Okay, so as I mentioned, we will go through, we will talk about the three most requested features that we get through different channels. This includes the support emails, the service desk, and also other times we get to talk with you, our great users. Um, as I mentioned, these are the most requested ones. So we'll go over the three of them, but this does not, of course, uh, conclude all of our features that we have considered or have on our backlog. We have a lot of ideas and a lot of extensions in mind. So with that in mind, let's go into the first feature here, which is timers for time logging. So this is very often requested of us, as it is something that users often want alongside robust reporting on time logging. It's basically easy and feature that will give an ease of use when it comes to time logging. So basically logging using timers. So there are a few other apps on Jira that do this. Basically, the idea is that we would allow uh, logging time from the issue view by pressing basically a play button. So it would be, so you would start a timer in a given issue and the count would start. Uh, then uh, this timer would keep track of how long you work on a given issue. After you are done, you click the pause or the stop button, and when you do that, uh, the time gets logged. Of course, you get to edit it out. Uh, Using this feature, you would get an exact amount of time you spent, even probably in minutes. So, for example, you can get values like 57 minutes. Uh, we would, of course, include options here for rounding if anyone wants to round these values to hours like we usually do. I personally always log rounded at least to half an hour. Um, so this timer, but you wouldn't have to input the time manually. The timer would keep track for you. These timers would also uh, uh, basically allow going, would understand the concept of a workday. So if a workday, for example, for you would end at 5 p.m., the timer would stop counting and would start at the next day, let's say 8 a.m. Of course, the workday would have to be configurable, as we know multiple people start time at different times, especially now during the remote time period. There's a lot of flexibility when it comes to work hours. Um, so these timers would be available from the issue view, maybe perhaps also from the Worklogs view, where you would just select the issue, you would click start, start your work. When you're done, you click pause, you get the time, and you log it. Um, a future iteration of this feature would be enhanced, an automatic enhancement to these timers, which would allow basically logging time automatically based on status changes. Uh, so in short, uh, or assigning changes as well. So if you would start a ticket and it would go into, let's say, if your Jira issue goes into the in progress status and you are the assignee, the timer would start counting the time for you then. Uh, when you're done and you move the issue to done, it would stop and you would log the time. It can also do that if you move it to a different column in your Jira board. For example, if you have the QA column or a review column or anything like that, or you just transition the issue to a different assignee, that will also uh, uh, log your time automatically, as it would understand that as a end of your work. Obviously, as you all know, with Jira, you have a lot of flexibility, a lot of configuration options. So that's something that we would have to keep in mind here, as you know, something that would be configurable enough and flexible to work for many different organizations and many different workflows. Uh, as I mentioned, some organizations may have a review status, a QA status. Some projects even within an organization might not have that. They might just have an in progress and a done status. Um, so this would require some configurability. Because of this, I'm saying this would likely be a second iteration. The first one would be the manual timer, where you just click start and then pause and you log the time. When it comes to the automatic logging between different status changes, that would come with a robust configuration system as it has to. All right, so that's generally uh, the idea behind this feature. Eva, you can probably show us the votes.
Yes, I'm already sharing it, and most of you would like to have the timer to log time for you. And as for other things, you are uncertain if you would like to have the time being logged automatically by using the status changes, which is quite surprising that it's something that doesn't give you the whole idea of how it would work. Maybe you could elaborate on that, Pavel, so it's more.
Well, I understand that some people might be hesitant to using this, as there are, many different workflows, many different configurations. What we would definitely allow here is if you are moving an issue between, let's say, the in progress status and a different status, and you are the assignee, then when you are moving these issue between the statuses, that would be a time log for you, and you would get to log the time there, and you would get the time automatically that it was. Uh, you would log the time that the issue was in the in progress status, let's say. And when you're moving it to done, it logs the time. However, I understand that you can have multiple different workflows, and sometimes you just switch between assignees whenever you want something from a different person. So there are a few caveats here, obviously, that we would have to cover with configuration options, such as different statuses, different workflows. But, well, as I mentioned, this would be the second iteration, and we will definitely cover this in our configuration options.
All right. And maybe anybody from you, our viewers, would like to add something or maybe explain why you wouldn't be so sure, or just plain simply say that you don't want to have the automation, or maybe express any kind of use you would like to see for the timers being used. Then feel free to share it with us. We'll be happy to elaborate on this matter. And if something is if something is unclear for you, then feel free to also bump us. We'll be happy to explain it further.
Okay, so the next feature that's also heavily requested from different users, and it's also a very popular feature to request, is that is requested, is preset reports in Worklogs. So basically in Worklogs, as I shown you, you can have different configurations for the report. You can set different groupings, different display options, different period groupings, different date ranges. So that's all fine and good, but every time you go into the Worklogs app, you have to switch these inputs manually. Even if you have a few go-to configurations that you use, you have to switch the inputs, then click the view report, and you get the report. What this feature would introduce is the ability for you to save these reports, very similar to how you can save Jira issue filters in Jira itself, right? You don't have to enter the JQL every time or select, the conditions for when you are searching for Jira issues. You can save those conditions as a Jira filter and then come back to it. So the same we would want to do with workload reports. You would be able to save your favorite configurations, then easily go back to them from the app itself. Currently, there are a few workarounds to achieve this. One of them is the dashboard gadgets. Obviously, you can configure your dashboard gadgets to suit your needs, and then you just go to your dashboard and you see all the reports. However, it always has to load all the gadgets. This might not be ideal. You can also store some of the configurations as URLs in your bookmarks, but that's also not something everyone wants to do. So we would give you an option to do this through the app itself. The ability to store these reports and then go back to them. You would also be able to share them with other users, same as you can share Jira filters. They would be easily accessible from the user interface. You will just be able to access them by going back to the main Worklogs view and just selecting your favorite report. You can also create different reports for different teams and share them with them, which would be some of our users like to do. So you can have a different report for an accounting team, for a development team. Then you can just share these reports across with these teams.
Yes, and even for billing your customers, it would come in handy. You can just preset a report that they will be able to maybe view, or you will be able to quickly export a file for them to like weekly update them how the process is going and how many time was spent on each of the tasks they requested for. So I'm excited about this one. I will be personally using it a lot as well.
Right. Great. So here is a rough draft of this feature that was developed some time ago. So basically what you want to pay attention to is this top part here, which would be your current. You would see the name of your preset report. You would be able to save it. Also, you will be able to go to a view where you can manage your presets. As you can see, probably this is heavily inspired by the Jira filters mechanism. It would be consistent with the Jira filters mechanism. You would manage your workload reports the same way. All right.
All right, then maybe let's talk about the poll results.
Okay, so let's take a look at the poll results. So as I can see, most of the users, all of the users would be interested in using this. I can see the gadgets are not that popular. I guess that's a matter of preference. Um, have you ever shared a Worklogs report? I can see that this also has been done. So great.
Yeah, I think that this feature seems to be that we are having it in the bank. It will be used most certainly.
All right.
And maybe let's move on and talk about similar, um, I think, related feature, which is budgeting.
Right, targeting. Yeah, so this is the third of the requested features that we get. This one is a bit less requested, but nonetheless it has some popularity. So budgeting. As you all know, a spent hour has a cost associated with it, unless you are working voluntarily. However, I imagine most of you are getting paid for your hours. Similar, um, so similar principle applies to Jira and Worklogs. Many people use Worklogs to export the hour data, the hourly data, or view it, and then convert it to the money value, whether by hand, in their head, or using Excel or other tools. Usually the hours would get transformed into the money values that are being spent. That way you can have a spending report or you can create an invoice based on the time that you have put into different projects or different initiatives. So what we want to do is Worklogs is to help out with this. We would allow you to also view the hourly reports in a way which would immediately show the money. So you would be able to configure the hourly rates. So you can probably start with something simple, like you can approximate how much an hour is worth. In many contexts, that's enough. You just say that an hour here in this project is worth, let's say, $20, right? $20 is the cost of a man hour, or maybe more, it's $50 or whatever. And then this hourly cost, you take all the hours and you multiply the hours by the hourly rate and you get the cost. So we would allow you to enter the hourly rate and then you would just see the Worklogs report showing the money values. Similarly, the Excel report would also be enhanced to show the cost values, not just the hourly values, where it would be configurable whether you want to see the hours or the money values. In this example here, we have dollars, but obviously we would allow you to choose the currency based on your local settings. Future iterations would be probably more robust. You wouldn't just set up a simple conversion of an hour to a money value, because it's not that simple when you get into the details. Different people, different wages based on their positions, based on the project, based on the task type, or any other different caveats can influence how much the hour costs the organization. This, however, would require a more robust configuration, and it's also something that we are considering. At first, we want to keep this simple so that we not necessarily start storing any payment information in Worklogs, right? I imagine that you don't want to store the hourly rates of your employees in multiple places. Of course, you would make sure it's encrypted, it's protected, all of that. But what we would probably want to target is a more simple approach to budgets. The first one, you would just approximate the hour value, and the later versions will tackle the problem of a more complex report. Of course, in that case, permissions would have to come in mind, right? Because not everyone should be allowed to see the hourly rates of different employees. It's probably very important that they do not, in some jurisdictions at least. And finally, of course, all worker features would work here. Never mind if you are showing the values with money values or hour values. So here is a short mock-up we did of this. As you can see, the hour values and the estimation have been replaced by dollar values, in this case, USD dollars, US dollars. So the Worklogs front-end side, the idea is as simple as this, and everywhere where you would see hours or other time values, we'll just switch them to money values, and you would now see money values. The more complexity comes in configuring this and making sure it's on the up and up when it comes to who can modify or view it. But at the simple version, this would just be a simple conversion from the hours to the cost, where every user on the fly can just input how much they think an hour is worth. So you can always and experiment with it. Even you can just change the hour value at fly. So that's budgeting. I imagine it can be useful for people that use Worklogs for invoicing purposes, as it removes the need to convert from the hour Excel export to a money Excel export. Of course, it's not as simple as that, obviously. So as we drill down more into this feature, some additional requirements may come in, because it can always have additional costs, etc. So all of that might come in at the later stages. However, this is the first concept for this feature. And with that, we can probably move to the poll results. I see most of you are interested in this, or all of you are interested in this. It's always fun to see the money values, right? To see the dollars, not just the hours. The hours are abstract, but the money is, it works on the imagination, right? The dollar values. Invoicing purposes, I see that nobody here that voted uses Worklogs for this. However, we do have customers that use it. We here at Software actually use it to some extent. We use Worklogs for invoicing. My boss uses it for invoicing, for example.
Yeah, so exactly, we can see by these polls result what you already said, that maybe it's not a feature that strictly is designed for those who use Worklogs for budgeting, but also for working the employees' imagination when they put hours to work, because it's altogether it is money.
Yeah, money talks, as they say.
All right, and by this we would have concluded our summary of our ideas for future features for the Worklogs. And now I would move on to maybe a discussion if somebody wants to share any idea what they would like to see in Worklogs. Otherwise, maybe you would like to show us how do you use Worklogs, Pavel, and maybe present to us some of interesting cases of how you can use Worklogs for different purposes.
All right, so let's wait for those questions to roll in. In the meantime, let me show you.
And it can be any kind of a question you would like to ask, not necessarily idea for a new feature.
Mhm. Right, so how I often use, let me just keep talking on how I use Worklogs.
Okay, go.
So I often take a look here. I'm just gonna use my user, but I often do a few different repos. One that I like is project by issue type. Let's remove myself from the filter. So I just look project and by issue type. So this is an interesting report, especially if you have, like, for example, the bug issue type. You can see how much time is being spent on bugs versus how much time is being spent on tasks or stories or new features or customer requests in this example. So I'm just looking at the month of October here. So I see that in our projects, we didn't spend that much time on bugs. We did spend most of it on tasks or new stories or customer requests. This is often good to take a look at a project on how it's performing. You can sometimes gauge if how much time goes into bugs. If it's a large number, it might be considered a red flag, right? Um, right. A different uh, trick that might not everyone might know in Worklogs is that you can log time directly into issues from this table. So I have project by issue type here, but if I add the issues as the secondary grouping, so let me do that. I will see the issues here, and I can log time directly in a given day in a given issue. So for example here, ACHEC 104 on Monday, October 4th. If I click the logwork here, I get this preset here already. So I get the ACHEC, the ticket selected, the date selected. So all I have to do is enter how much hours I spent, and a description if I so desire, and then I just log the time, and that would be that. So this, when you have the issues selected as the final grouping, that's a nice way to just log time directly in them without having to find them in Jira or anything like that. Also, a nice feature we have added in Woklogs recently is cards. So you can switch between different cards. So we have a pie card, and I have the project grouping here, so I can see how much time goes into different projects. This is interesting as it's a more a view that talks more to the imagination than just a table, right? The picture uh, says more than 1,000 words. Similarly, I can also switch to a bar chart. In this case, as you can see, we have time as different bars. I can download these charts as images to include in my presentations or any other content. For now, we are only supporting a single level in these charts. As you can see, I can only select the categorization. So both in this bar chart and the pie chart, uh, we do not support multiple levels in the charts yet. Like for example, we do not split these bars into different pieces, but this is also something that we are considering for the future as a possible enhancement in Worklogs to just allow multi-level multi-level charts to see more uh, for them to be more useful. But that's generally a smaller feature than the three that I shown you. It should be a bit more quicker for us to add, and it's probably something we will also introduce in due time. Uh,
All right. Sorry to interrupt you a bit, but I see that some of you rejoined us. So just to quickly sum up what is happening right now, we encourage you to write to us any question or any idea for what you would like to see in our workbook, and we'll be happy to discuss it with you live now, or if you have any questions at all about Worklogs, we'll be happy to also answer them. In the meantime, we are just going through different uses of Worklogs, so maybe it could inspire you to doing your own report based on the use examples that Pavel is providing us. By any means, feel free to ask us anything. We'll be happy to answer it using this opportunity of Apptoberfest to meet with our users.
right, so do not hesitate, ask us anything you wish. Also something maybe not so obvious in Worklogs is the okay, is that we allow multiple view options. So like for example, I can switch different time units. So I can see this as different hours, hours or minutes, hours, all these nice stuff. Um, a few more maybe not so obvious ones is the subtask option. So what this does is basically tells Worklogs whether subtasks should be treated separately or summed up into their um, parent ticket. So in some cases, we want to see the subtask show in the reports if we are using issue grouping, and sometimes we not necessarily. In this case, the sum option would ignore the subtask and just sum them into their parent ticket. Um, the multi-select grouping option is for custom fields that are of the multi-select type. So for example, if I group by a field, there is a multi-select field, I can um, show some of the results grouped or separately. What I can do, for example, is I can maybe just remove the grouping here, and let's do this by labels, which is a multi-select field. And if I do labels, as you can see, some of them are grouped. So for example, a ticket has two of these labels. In that case, this time will be grouped. However, I can also show them separately. In this case, all of these labels will be separated. However, this might end up in duplicating your data in a way, right? Because here, this customer care is exactly the same ticket that's the SMDev ticket here. However, um, it's shown separately on the table here because this was often a requested feature of us, and because of this we gave our users this ability to switch how we interpret uh, these cases for such fields. Non-working days, you can hide them, show them. Uh, Non-working days can be configured at the Worklogs level. You can change, by default it's the Saturday and Sunday scheme, but different countries may have different working days, and you can also define public holidays in Worklogs.
And we have a question. A person is asking us, when I install the app, do all users see those reports or only admins? So maybe we will show how the permissions work.
Okay, so oops, sorry, I lost control here. Yeah, so for Worklogs, by default, all the users can see the reports. However, we have an option to restrict this. So we go to a different site here. Let me hide this. So in Worklogs, you can go to our settings. So you can go manage apps here. And I'm just gonna go to Worklogs. So here you have permissions. In the app settings, so I went to app settings and permissions for Worklogs, and you can select who can access or who can see Worklogs of other people. So the first one is who can access, so you can obviously block off users from accessing Worklogs. So the default is that all users can access, but if I tag this off, I can limit this either to users like myself or groups like, let's say, Jira administrators. I can do Jira administrators, for example. Another restriction is who can see the worklogs of other users. I can turn this off. So by default, everyone can see the worklogs of other users. We do not hide this, but I can limit this so that only select users can see the worklogs of other users. And when I selected this option here, as you can see, now I'm not able to switch the user. I can only see my own worklogs because I've turned off the ability. I could probably give myself here rights. And if I give myself the rights to view these worklogs for other users, now
sorry, Pavel, but you have to slow down because as I can see, the sharing has frozen. So if you could just try to share screen once again.
Okay, yeah, it's my bad because I had to drag the Zoom thing around and click something. Yeah, but yeah, as you can see, I now have myself here, and now I can switch the users and groups. Let's turn it off, back on, so that everyone can see the worklogs, everyone, excuse me, can access. So yeah, you can restrict who can access, and you can also restrict who has access to worklogs of other users. One important thing to keep in mind here is that we are using Jira time tracking, right? We are not adding our own time tracking. You can use this Jira time tracking without having Worklogs installed, and by default, it's not hidden in any way. So users that use your Jira can see where other people are logging time. They can go to the issues manually and they can see the worklogs there. They can also use the APIs if they are technical users. They can find out a way to get this information through the API, whether you have our app installed or not. And that's something that Jira allows the users to do. And it's not something that we can block when using the Jira time tracking, right? If someone decides to go through all these Jira issues, they can see where the time was being logged. That can be configured with Jira permissions or restricted to some extent, but it's a Jira, it's a Jira feature. However, this still was often requested of us for most of the users. For most of these cases, just hiding the app itself was enough, and hiding the easy way to access this information, right? Because most users won't go compiling reports by hand or doing anything like that. However, when we install Worklogs, you get an easy way to just look at this data in many different ways under many different angles. And because of this, we do have permissions that restrict the access to our app.
All right, thank you, Pavel. And I think that if there are no more questions or no more subjects that you would like us to show you, then that would be our time for today's webinar. So if anybody wants to add something or ask something, then please raise your hand or type it in. Otherwise, it will be our time to end this meeting.
Yeah, thanks everyone for attending and participating. We'll be sharing a recording afterwards, and you can view this webinar and share it and all of that stuff. Thanks for interacting with us in any other way. We always appreciate feedback. Throughout the years, it was the voice of our users that directed the direction in which we developed Worklogs. We maybe started based on our needs, on what we needed, but after that, we always listened to our customers, and they were the driving force behind where the app is headed, and we intended on keeping it that way. We intend on keeping it that way.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for saying that, Pavel. And as a customer care, I must also add that our conversation doesn't end here, doesn't end up this webinar. Please feel free to contact us at any time with any concern, idea, or question. We will be happy to answer it on our service desk or through an email. And I will be happy to assist you with using our Worklogs or with any other our apps. So feel free to write anytime you want any feedback. As Pavel said, we are driven by your ideas, by your needs, and we'll be happy to continue to do so and develop new features for you, designed for your needs. All right. Thank you for attending our today's webinar. See you again, maybe sometime, and bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.